But just to add, we're also going to briefly look at language and grammar. However, there will be a workshop where I focus specifically on language and grammar. So today I'm just going to be highlighting some of the issues that you will address in more detail in the grammar and language workshop. Okay, but we'll start with the introduction, the body paragraphs, and the conclusion. So I want you to have a look at this photo. These two photos, and I want you to compare them and tell me what does this say about the essay to you? What is the difference between these two photos? All right, also just drawing attention to what Mr. Kagiso is saying in the chat. So guys, our sessions will consist of 2 sessions. Sorry, I didn't take note of this in the announcements. It will consist of 2 sessions or 2 types of sessions. So there will be workshops where I walk you through the theory. For example, today I'm walking you through how to write your academic essays, but you will also be able to see me on a one-on-one. So let's say you have an assignment, an upcoming assignment, and you have a draft. You can say, okay, you can book with Kagiso to say, I would like to see Queen on a one-on-one so that she can go through my essay and tell me where I can improve. Right, on the academic aspects. I do not look at the content, but I look at your structure, your grammar, your references, and we see how your work can flow. But also, I also help you to see if you're answering the question correctly. So let's say you're not able, you don't know how to approach the question, you don't know how to go about it, and you need assistance. We can brainstorm, we can look at best ways to answer the specific question. So I'm able to help you with all academic aspects. You can book for one-on-one, and these sessions are usually 30 minutes sessions where it's me and you, and we can really have a more in-depth focus on your specific assignment. So if you need that, I see, okay, high five. Hi, Leseko. Nada. Karabo says thumbs down. I hope that you feel better after today's session. All right, thank you so much. Now, let's go back to the photo. Now that we have a sense of how you're feeling, I'm glad that a lot of you are feeling good. Karabo, I really not happy that you feel that way. If you would like to share why you feel thumbs down, you can do so. Perhaps we can talk about it. Alternatively, I just wish you could feel better. All right. So your impressions about the photo, even if it's just describing the photos. All right, guys, this is not a lecture, right? This is not a lecture, so I'm not going to be talking all the time. You have to interact with me. Okay, we're here to learn from each other. So there's no right or wrong answer. And I always tell students, we only learn by making mistakes, right? You cannot learn if you're not willing to make a mistake. Because when you make a mistake, then you're able to improve, right? So engaging is always a better way to learn than being silent. Yes, Leifa, there's a hand raise. Leifa?
I'll say the picture on the right seems to be macabre, disturbing graphic. And the one on the left seems to be more academic or informative.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Leifa. Thank you. Excellent. Any other impressions? All right, there's something in the chat as well. This one picture shows the whole makeup of the skeleton. Yes. One skeleton shows, sorry, where am I? One skeleton shows the front view and one has the back view, okay? The first image shows human's anatomy, well-structured and clearly labeled. On the other hand, the second image shows dismantled body with no clear structure. Excellent, Karabo. Thank you so much as well, Zinande and Sal. Definitely, guys, you have it, right? This is just a contrast of what your essay will look like if it's well-structured and if it's not well-structured. So this is what the reader sees when you have a good structured essay with all the academic concept label, as Leifa mentioned. As Karabo mentioned, you can see a clear structure. You see where the head is, which is representative of the introduction. You see where the body parts are, the body paragraphs, the conclusion, the legs. You can see every label. It's clear. You know where to find what. You know where the hand is. You know where the vertebral column is, and so on. But when you look at the other picture, you see the head and bones, right? If they say identify perhaps the mouth, you cannot, or the jaw, you cannot really identify the jaw. If they say identify the leg or the feet or the toes, you cannot do that because it's dismantled, as Karabo mentioned. It's everywhere, right? And this is a clear, representation of what we want your essay to look like, right? To look like the one on the left, where you can clearly see what is what, where your arguments flow in a cohesive manner, flow in a structured manner, right? Please just mute yourself. If you want to ask a question, you can do so. Alternatively, for better recording, please just mute yourself. And also, before we continue, please note that the sessions are recorded and will be made available to you. Usually it's after 7 working days. I don't know if it has changed, please, but if it has changed, Mr. Kariso, please just let me know in the chat. Alternatively, in the past, after 7 working days, the recording is usually made available to students. So for better recording, please keep your mics muted, except you want to ask the question, and then you can unmute your mic to do so. All right. So today's session, we hope that we're able to guide you to be able to have essays that are structured in this manner, right? Where your arguments flow in a cohesive manner and be able to know how your work will be structured. All right. Excellent, guys. Well done. Okay. Now let's continue. So let's start with understanding what an academic essay is, right? An academic essay, it's a well-structured piece of writing, so it needs to be structured in a very cohesive manner, in a logical way. You need to constantly be reminded of the principles of an academic essay, which is having clear introduction, body paragraph, conclusion, writing using a proper grammar, formal language, referencing appropriately, avoiding plagiarism, right? So within your essay, you also need to pay attention to what we call the micro essay paragraph, right? So you will see that when writing your paragraphs, as we'll see during today's session, you also have what we call the micro essay, which is an essay within an essay, which I will unpack as we address writing the paragraph, right? So it is a clear, concise, focused, structured, and backed up with evidence, as I've explained. But the essay in itself then is designed to present a specific idea, right? So academic writing can be any kind of writing that has clear, concise, structured work. So for example, it could be a report, it could be a business report, it could be a scientific report, it could be a case study, it could be a literature review, right? That all those academic writing. So it's really any kind of writing that has a clear purpose, right? It's written in a formal tone for the purpose of allowing your reader to understand your argument. So the essay is one of the types of academic writing, right? Not the only, but one of the types of the academic writing. Today we're looking at the academic essay, so the basic structure of the essay. But with the types of essay workshop, we'll then look at different types of academic essays, like the argumentative, the comparative, the descriptive, and so on. But today we're looking at the basic, and the basic will give you some kind of a foundation to be able to understand the different types of essays. All right. Okay, so then the purpose of the essay is to either present an argument if it's an argumentative essay, it could be to express an emotion, it could be to provide details or a narration, the narrative essay, right? So this is the tool where you use to present your ideas in a non-fictional way. And please highlight non-fictional, right? Because academic essays are usually non-fictional. This means you need to present it using facts, either primary data or secondary data. That is primary data you collected yourself, which usually comes with academic writing like your proposals, or secondary data, which is data you get from literature, so from reading other sources, which then requires you to reference appropriately. And we will have a workshop on referencing as well, how to reference in a more academic manner. Okay, so we have constantly or have been drawing your attention to the fact that the academic essay has 3 different components, right? So we have the introduction, which is the first part of the academic essay, which tells your readers what you plan to tell them. So when I read a student's introduction, I should have a broad sense of what the essay will be about. Now, sometimes you have introductions that does not clearly state what the essay will be about, but we will unpack that when we look at in more detail how you should structure your introduction. Then we have the essay or the body paragraphs, right? The essay body, or what we call your paragraphs. Yeah, you actually tell the readers what you said you will tell them in the introduction. Then we have the conclusion, which is the last part of your academic essay, which reminds the reader of what you said you will tell them in the introduction and what you did in the body paragraphs. So we will unpack each of these in more detail for you to be able to see what is required of you for each of these sections. Now, just so you get ready, please get a paper, or preferably if you can open your Word document, because after going through the structure of the introduction, I will give you a topic and I will require you to actually type out an introduction and share that in the chat. Then I'll provide feedback on your introduction so that you're able to see ways to improve. It's better this way because this will then allow you to be able to do theory and practice, because sometimes you take in all the information, but you're not sure if you understand it. So doing this activity will give me an indication of your understanding of today's topic. I'm just saying this so that you pay attention as we go to the introduction, knowing that you will have an activity afterwards. All right. So a good introduction should identify your topic, provide essential context, and indicate particular focus in the essay. It also needs to engage your reader's interest. So most often, if I read the introduction and it doesn't draw my interest, probability is I won't really focus on the full essay, right? So in an essay, article, or book, the introduction is usually the beginning section. In proposals, for example, the first part is usually or can be the abstract, followed by the introduction. Same with scientific reports. The business reports is usually the executive summary first. But with the academic essay, the first paragraph should be your introduction. Now, how should you structure this introduction? Okay. Before I walk you through how to structure the introduction, one thing to note about the introduction is that it would be the summary of the entire essay. Now, whatever you put in your introduction should be fully captured in your body in detail with references, examples, and explanation. So the length of the introduction is usually between half a page and 1 page. But please note, it depends on the length of the work, right? So we say half a page, 1 page, but this depends on the length. So let's say if it's a 3,000 word essay or 2,500 word essay, usually half a page or 1 page should do. But if your work extends beyond that and it's a longer essay, like maybe 6,000 words, 7,000 words, then the introduction could be longer. So the best way to put this is to say, if your introduction can be 10% of your entire work, then that would be ideal. Then the conclusion can be about 5%, right? And the body takes the main part. Or if you put your introduction 15% and the conclusion 5%, that could also work, making your body 80%, because the body should have majority of your writing. Now, sometimes students will have the introduction longer than the work itself, or you have the conclusion longer than the paragraphs themselves. That is not a good academic essay. All right. Now, one thing I want you to note in today's session, or while taking your notes, pay attention to things that I point out, saying students usually make such mistakes, because that is the recurrent mistakes that students make. And again, the thing that markers look out for, right? So please pay attention to that and just take some notes so you don't forget. All right. So now let's look at the structure. Now, I want you to take a snapshot of this or copy paste this. So I don't think you can copy from my slide, but take a snapshot or take notes of these, because these are the 4 components I want to see in your activity, the activity that will follow. I want to see these 4 components, right? So when you're writing an introduction, there's 4 things that the marker looks at. First thing, has the student introduced the context or the topic? Now, let's say I'm writing about the consequences of COVID, right? Now, the introduction can be something like, you know, COVID started in 2019 in China, then spread throughout the world and led to a lot of, and impacted the population both negatively and positively. That is me introducing the topic broadly. Then the second thing I will do is define the concept. Now, what is COVID? COVID is a virus that attacks the body, the lungs, and this. Then I'll provide referencing. Generally, when providing definition for your main concepts, it's important that you define your main concepts and back it up with a referencing, right? After defining the main concepts, the next thing you need to do then is to, and this is the heart of your AC, right? And the heart of your introduction, what we call the aim. What is the main aim of your AC? With the argumentative AC, we say thesis, right? Because it's an argument that you put forth, for or against. In narrative ACs is the purpose or the aim of the AC. Also in proposals, it's also the aim. In scientific reports, it's also the aim. What is the aim? So what does it set out to do? So the aim of my work, which remember my question is the consequences. Discuss the consequences of COVID. So my aim will be, this essay sets out to address the positive and negative impact of COVID. Some students will decide to address the positive, others will decide to address the negative, but consequences usually imply both, right? Except you take an argument to say, if it's an argumentative essay, then to say they are more positive than negative, right? But sometimes which I'll really address in the unpacking questions, right? But we're not unpacking questions today. We're looking at the structure of the AC. So the aim is that one sentence. Guys, try not to put your aim in 2 sentences. Try to make sure your aim is captured in 1 sentence that clearly state what the essay will be all about. Then now the sentence that follows the aim is what we call the outline, the premise of your essay. So the premise now it could be 3 sentences that clearly states the different things you'll be addressing. Now, in the example that I'm working with, right? This essay will firstly address death as a negative consequence of COVID. It will further address loss of employment as another consequence of COVID. It will end off by addressing, flexibility with work as a positive consequence of COVID. Now, with the premise, you do not generally state you state it with the aim, but with the premise now you need to tell the reader what each paragraph will be discussing. And always do it in the order. Now, please take note of this. The premise must be done in the order in which you want to discuss these points. So if you want to start with the loss of life as a first consequence, then you would say, firstly, the essay will address loss of life as a major consequence. Then I expect the first paragraph to be addressing loss of life. If you say secondly, I'll be addressing loss of employment, then the second paragraph should be about loss of employment. So the premise is about the structure. So there needs to be a logical flow between what you state in your premise or outline and what will follow in the body. So that is one important thing to note, right? Okay, so let me recap. Introducing your topic is really about providing a background information. Defining key concept, what to note is try to back it up with some kind of a reference instead of providing your own definition. Then the aim should be one sentence. Try to make it one sentence, and it should capture a general sense of what the essay will be about, and should be, please note, should be directly linked to your question. Directly linked to your question. And of course, the premise should be written in the order in which the body paragraphs will be structured. I have explained all of this already, all right? Now, one thing to note with the aim, if you look at the second rectangle there, avoid things like I will be discussing, right? The first person. Now, some lecturers do not mind using the first person anymore, but most lecturers prefer when you write using the third person, which is this essay investigates, this essay explores. One thing I'd like you to note with this second bullet, let's assume I'm a marker and I have 100 scripts to mark. Probability that I'll read every sentence without some kind of a guide is difficult. So there's certain cues that lecturers, markers look for. That kind of guides you on what the student is focusing on or how the student writes. And this usually gives you more marks, right? So some of these guiding words are very important. We have linking words, we have guiding phrases. Now, when I look at the introduction, what I'm looking for is your thesis, your heart, your aim. How do I quickly know this? By the phrases you use. This essay addresses, this essay focuses on, explores, this essay discusses. There are 3 different causes of COVID. That is also a way to put it. So the third person as well. This essay, you know, or the main aim of this essay is to, the main purpose of this essay is to. So these kind of words guide your reader to say this is the thesis, this is the focus of your work. Then the words that will guide your reader to know that this is the premise are the same words like the essay will firstly look at, it will further address, it will then discuss, lastly, it will do 1 or 2 and 3. So these linking words like firstly, secondly, further, moreover, you know, within your introduction kind of tells the reader, okay, this is how the work will be structured. Okay. Now, another thing to note is try to avoid too much details or examples or many references in your introduction. Now, I've been saying if you're defining the main concept, you can use a reference, but avoid too many references. 1 or 2 marks is usually sufficient, right? Don't use too many references. Too many examples are not needed. You will provide ample example in the body, right? But not in the introduction. All right. Any questions? Any questions so far regarding the introduction before we do the activity? Okay, no question. Karina, do you have a question?
No.
All right. Okay. Now, this is the question I'm giving you, and it's a question we'll work with throughout the the workshop, so that at the end you can have your mini AC, right? I'm saying mini because we'll have the introduction, one body paragraph, and the conclusion. So this is your question. The causes of poverty in Africa, and please do not be taken aback with the take 5 minutes, right? I think we can give 10 minutes for you to write the introduction. I will give you 10 minutes. Because you need to think about the topic. Maybe you may need to do some small research. But what I want to see in your introduction is this. I need to see 4 different components. Of course, you don't have to number them. An introduction is written in a block format, right? You could have 2 paragraphs in the introduction if it's a 1-page introduction, a longer introduction. And this paragraph can be broken into, you can have the context in the 1 paragraph, then in the next paragraph, the thesis and the outline. But there also needs to be a clear way in which you break them. You can't just break them without really a clear indication of how you're breaking them. But generally, with small essays, it's usually 1 paragraph written in a block format. But what I need to see is your introduction of the topic, definition of the main term. You can provide, just Google a definition, right? You can provide it and reference it, the aim and the structure of your essay. Now, this is your question. Discuss the causes of poverty in Africa. Discuss. Sorry, my question, I didn't put what we call the, it's completely escaped my mind. The tax word, thank you. So the tax word, which is the word that tells you what to do, discuss the causes of poverty in Africa. We're going to pay a lot of attention with the introduction because it's the first part of your body and will determine how your work will be structured. If you get the introduction right, possibilities are you will get the body and the conclusion right. Okay, so that's why I'm giving you more time to really pay attention and focus on the introduction. The question is in the chat. I'm putting this slide just so that you can see the different aspects needed in your introduction. If you just joined the session or you had connectivity issues, we have gone through the structure of an introduction, and an introduction needs to have 4 different components, as you can see on the slide. And the question is in the chat. So you're discussing the causes of poverty in Africa, and you have to structure an introduction, and that introduction needs to have these 4 different components written in a block format, right, in a paragraph format. So I have given you 10 minutes to write down your introduction and share that in the chat, and we'll then have feedback so we can see how you're able to incorporate this in actual writing.
Yes, I have a question. I just wanted to ask if, like,
yes, Lungili,
with our introduction, right?
Yes.
So I'm not sure because I just posted on the chat now, but I just wanted to ask in terms of like referencing, if I have like Google piece of information, how do I then reference that when I'm writing an introduction? Because I was just listening to you when you were explaining, and I thought that the main idea to the introduction is like for you to introduce the topic before you dive deep into like the reasons why poverty in Africa is and stuff.
All right. So the references will usually come in your definition. Now, there's 4 parts of the introduction. You're introducing the topic. For example, the introduction cannot be in a sentence. It has to be at least 4 sentences. Why? Yes. Because you need to address these 4 areas. Now, introducing the topic is that general sentence where you bring the reader to the topic. Now, the reference usually comes with a definition. Now, if you look at this question, what do you think is the main term or the main concept? What are you doing in this question? What is the main concept?
Okay.
No, I'm asking.
Oh, the main concept with regards to the topic is
yes,
inequality and poor leadership.
No, when you look at the question, what is the main thing you're to do in this question?
The causes of poverty in Africa.
Yes. What is the main concept? What is the main?
Poverty.
Excellent. Now, what is poverty, Longili?
People living under extreme conditions, poor conditions.
Okay, now hold that thought. Someone else, please tell me your definition of poverty. So Lungile says poverty is living in poor conditions. Any other definitions of poverty? What does poverty mean to you? Yes, Ashley?
My definition of poverty in Africa is the lack of provision to satisfy the basic human needs of certain people.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Something else?
A state below acceptable conditions.
Excellent. There's another hand. You can go. Okay, I think it was Leifa and Ashley. Now, what I'm trying to get at Lungile is, Lungile, are you here with me? Now,
Yes,
can you see that different definitions emerge?
Yes.
Now, what would back up Ashley's definition? What would back up Leifa's definition? And what would back up your definition is the reference that you produce, because there's no one definition to many terms. And there's different ways to look at certain things. Now, because the concept or the main term is what really holds your introduction, it's very important that you define it and you back it up with literature or with reference to say, this is not just my definition, but this is an acceptable definition, maybe by the dictionary or by this famous author. So it strengthens your definition, and that will set the premise for the entire work, because now you are saying is poor condition. You know, Leifa says below a certain condition, and Ashley said, I can't remember all the definitions, sorry, the people who do not meet, I think, certain economic conditions. Now, what I'm trying to say is that there's different aspects to this definition, but your definition is what will guide the reader to what is to follow. So it's usually very important to reference that, just to give support to your definition.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
All right. Another thing as well, let's say, for example, I'm working on identity.
Yes.
Now, the question is maybe what affects someone's identity. Now, the first thing is identity to me, it's who I am. To someone else, identity may be where they come from. Do you get me, Lungile?
Yes.
And that definition will set the premise for my essay. So definitions are very important and most often should be referenced just so that I can support your argument.
Okay, noted. Thank you.
Okay, I also have, is the state of being poor, lack of riches. Okay, definitely. I need at least 4 sentences in your introduction, at least. It should be at least 4 sentences. It could be more, but it should be at least 4 sentences. But looking at the 4th point, it cannot be 4 sentences. It should be more. But since this is just, you know, an activity, I can't accept 4 sentences, but it could be more, right? But should be at least. Anyone ready with the introduction? All right, we have one from Mamelo. Thank you, Mamelo. Poverty is a huge problem faced by many in Africa. Excellent. Nice introductory sentence. Poverty means physical deprivation, lack of opportunity, and loss of hope. Excellent. What we can improve there, Mamelo, is just to add a reference that backs up this definition. Poverty is much more than just not having enough money. Excellent. So again, we're explaining that definition. Now, Mamelo, what you can do to improve on your introduction is you're missing. So if I were to give you, to mark you, right, I will give you 1 point on introducing the topic. You introduced the topic clearly. That was beautifully done. Beautifully done. You did define the concept. Excellent. Now, what is missing in your introduction is a clear aim. What is the aim of your AC? Usually the aim will take 3 or 2 marks. Will always take more marks than introducing the topic, the concept, or the premise. So point number 3 will make you lose the highest mark. If your essay does not have the aim, you will lose a lot of marks. Okay, so that is missing. And I do not know what causes you will be discussing in your essay. So Mamelo, you have to tell me what are the causes that you'll be discussing in your essay. So adding these 2 things will make your introduction complete. But thank you so much for the attempt. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay, Katlego. Let's read Katlego's introduction. Poverty. Thank you, Leseko. I'll follow by yours. Poverty has been an arising factor in Africa as it has been a major aspect in the African countries living in unfavorable conditions. Excellent. 1 point there. Well done introducing the topic. However, it has rapidly increased as it's been shown in the following studies. Nice. There you then put your reference in there, because once you say following studies or research, you have to back it up with referencing, right? You can never say as seen in research or researchers have said or previous studies have said without including 1 or 2 sources at least. Okay, let's continue. So that is a good introduction. Excellent. Now, this essay to follow will evaluate the impact and economic factors that lead to poverty in Africa. Excellent. You are clearly telling the reader what the focus of your essay will be. Impact, but more so economic impacts. So you are telling me you will not focus on the social, you will not focus on the political, but you're saying your essay will focus on the economic. So this means, Katleko, you cannot talk about, social or political. You have to focus on economic. Now, Katleko, excellent. You have a mark on introducing the topic. What is missing is a clear definition of what poverty is according to you or the premise of your study. Then you also need to indicate to the reader what are the economic factors that you'll be discussing. So the premise, point number 4. For example, this essay will start by discussing, for example, what economic factor? Give me an example of one economic factor. Lack of unemployment, for example, I'm not sure. Katlego, are you with me? I'll wait for your response. Now, let me read Leseko while I wait for Katlego's economic impact at unemployment. Excellent. So Katlego, in your introduction, then the last sentence needs to state 1 or 2 or 3 of these economic factors you'll be discussing. So you say, firstly, the essay will address unemployment as a cause, as the major cause of poverty in Africa. Secondly, this. Thirdly, this. So you need to name those actual economic factors that your essay will be addressing, and that will make your introduction complete. Okay. Please, if you do understand the comments that I provided on your introduction, please just give an indication with thumbs up, or if you have any questions, thumbs down. Okay. All right. Leseko, poverty according to Britannica is the state of one who lacks a usual or sociable acceptable amount of manual material possessions. Poverty is a word synonymous with the third world countries. This essay will expand on the causes of poverty in Africa. The essay first looks at the possible financial causes. This essay will further discuss the social causes, and the essay will moreover look at political causes. In a world with so many billionaires, poverty might be construed as an absence of generosity and sympathy from the affluent 1%. Excellent. Well done. Excellent, Leseko. Now, what is beautiful with your definition is you have all 4 aspects. Now, what you could improve is the structure of it. Now, when it comes to an introduction, and thank you so much, Leseko, because you're bringing in your introduction, you're bringing in something that we might take lightly, but which is very important. Now, it's not just about including these 4 things, but they need to and have to be in this order. You cannot swap the order, right? So it's advisable. One thing you can swap is the definition and introduction, but still you may lose marks with some markers. So you always have to start with introducing the topic first, right? So, for example, in your case, Leseko, you could start with a sentence, this sentence that says, poverty is a word synonymous with the third world countries. That is a way to introduce it. So this would be the best sentence to start with, followed by the definition by Britannica. Then you have your the main purpose, which is this essay will expand on the causes. Then if you want to include in a world with so many billionaires, this should be part of the introduction because you're saying this is how some people see it. So bringing in different aspects of the definition. So this last sentence, Leseko, you should shift it to follow the one with the Britannica. So this should be the last sentence should be the sentence number 3. So sentence number 1 will be sentence number 2, and the last sentence will be sentence number 3. Then you should always end your introduction with the premise. So this essay will firstly look at, it will then look at, and will end by looking at. Do you understand, Leseko? Excellent. Excellent. That was an excellent attempt. Well done. Okay. Let's continue. Kubalo says poverty is the state of one who lacks unusual or acceptable amount of manual material possession. It's a huge problem in Africa where a lot of people lack access to clean water and nutritious food. Excellent. Again, you have done well done. Well, this is a good attempt. However, Kumalo, an introduction can never be in a sentence, right? It needs to include, again, these 4 aspects. So what you have done is you've done point number 2. You needed to introduce the topic, which the first sentence could still work as an introduction, that I could still give you a mark there. For the definition as well, I could give you 2 marks, actually. Just add a reference, then state what the essay will be about and the premise, the outline of the essay. Refilo says poverty is one of the greatest, okay, which led to people living in excellent. Again, you have explained poverty, but that cannot form an introduction. You need to add the purpose of your essay and the overall structure of your essay. Okay, let's look at Karabo's definition. Poverty is the oldest and the most resistant virus that brings about devastating diseases in the third world country. Okay, I like the reference. Poverty continues to cripple many countries in the African continent. There are many causes of poverty, and this essay will discuss these causes. Excellent, excellent, Karabo. The largest cause in the most opinions is the colonialism that took place over the years. Excellent. A second and third is the inequality and corruption that are rampant in most countries, if not all of Africa. This essay will seek to break down the above-mentioned causes and give examples and possible solutions of each cause. Excellent. This last sentence could be part of the whole, right? It's not necessary. You will still have had all the marks without this last sentence, but it still won't penalize you, but don't separate it alone, because once you put it alone, it's a paragraph on its own and it's incomplete. So avoid sentences that stand on their own. It should be blocks, right? Sometimes students will have a paragraph made out of 2 sentences. Once it's standing alone, it's considered a paragraph in academic writing. And if it's just 1 sentence, then it's incomplete. You will lose marks. So this last sentence, just merge it with the previous one. Alternatively, you can take it out. But even if you add it, you won't still lose marks because your introduction is complete. Excellent. You have introduced, and your introduction together is some kind of a definition. But one thing I can advise is try to put the reference in the second sentence. Avoid referencing the first sentence. Even with the paragraph, we'll see that avoid, and please note this, avoid referencing your first sentence. The referencing should always come in the second sentence. All right. So that is what you can do to improve. But excellent. Well done. Okay. All right. Reading the last one. All right, so you have introduced what poverty is. Perhaps a definition of poverty will be good, referencing it, Google. You say the causes of poverty in Africa are lack of shelter and government, lack of shelter and government, and corruption. So first, you need to clearly state this is the purpose of the essay. right? Or you state it the way Karabo stated it, in a way that says, okay, lack of shelter, lack of government, lack of causes of poverty, and will be the main focus of this AC. So you always need to clearly state that this is the aim of the AC, and that will get you more marks, right? And one beautiful things, Google, that you're bringing in is that sometimes your aim and the structure could be in one. Because if you are already naming them, that could be both your aim as well as the structure, because you've already named them. So that could also work. I will give you both marks for point number 3 and point number 4, right? But again, avoid having 2 sentences in an introduction. Try to make it at least 4. Okay, Ashley, excellent introduction. Sorry, I meant excellent introductory sentence. All right. So you see that Ashley and Google use the same strategy, which is merging point number 3 and point number 4, and it is acceptable. Perhaps what to improve is providing more context about poverty, so maybe more background and definition supported by referencing, and that will improve your introduction. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating, and I hope that the comments did provide you some kind of guidance on how to improve on your introductions. And remember, you do have access to one-on-one consultations with your actual assignments if you want me to have a closer look at it. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Now let's look at the body paragraph, right? And please, as I mentioned, we took a lot of time in the introduction because if you get the introduction right, it's easier for you to get the body right, okay? Now, the body is the largest part and usually will have more marks. Yes, the introduction will take a lot of time because it guides your body. Why? Because the body takes the most marks. So if you get the introduction right, you'll probably get higher marks from the body. Now, the body fulfills 2 functions, description and analysis. Please note this, description and analysis. Most academic work, students describe, but they do not analyze. So it's very important that in your discussion, it's very important that you analyze your work, not just discussing. So the explanation part and the referencing part, you're describing. But when you link that explanation to your question, that is where you begin to analyze, and we'll see how to do that, okay? So this is how the essays should look like, right? You have your introduction, then you have body paragraph 1. So in your body paragraph 1, Ashley, for example, you discuss unemployment. In your body paragraph 2, you discuss inadequate housing. And in your body paragraph 3, you will discuss food insecurity, right? So each of these points will be addressed in these different paragraphs. And for Karabo, body paragraph 1 will be the social causes. So you can discuss a few of them. Body paragraph 2, sorry, let me just go to Leseko. Leseko, you can discuss societal causes in body paragraph 1. Financial in body paragraph 1, societal paragraph 2, and political paragraph 3, right? Katleko will discuss the economic factors, but you have to tell us which, and you discuss each. Unemployment will be number 1. You need one for 2 and 3, and the conclusion. Now, within your actual paragraph is also a micro essay. Remember, we spoke about micro essay at the beginning. Now, this is very important that you see each paragraph as an essay on its own. Each paragraph needs an introduction, what we call topic sentences. The body, what we call supporting sentences, explanation, evidence, and examples. And an introduction, what we call a conclusive sentence. This is the structure. When you have that in your mind that, okay, when I'm structuring a body paragraph, there needs to be, it's an essay on its own. I need to introduce it. I need to explain it, provide evidence, analyze it. Then I need to conclude it. You will have an effective paragraph. Okay.
Ma'am, on the main
The
screen, do we
snapshot
still
of
have?
this?
Sorry, ma'am.
Yes, Lefa.
On the screen, do we still have the page saying writing an effective introduction, or has that changed?
No, we are looking at the pill now, the structure, the pill.
Oh, okay.
Can everyone see the pill structure? Or are you still seeing the effective paragraphing? Okay, some people can see it. Perhaps Lefa, consider maybe do you have internet? Check your connection, maybe. Okay.
I'll log out and log in again, ma'am.
All right, please let me know when you log back in, if you're able to see it. All right. So guys, please take a snapshot. Take a snapshot, because again, though I will keep this slide for you while we're doing the activity. But these are the components of your paragraph. The first sentence is what we call the topic sentence. Please write that down. Your topic sentence is the sentence that introduces what the paragraph will be about. One sentence. With each paragraph, write one short sentence. It should be clear, concise, and short, brief, and sweet. Avoid referencing. Take note, no referencing. First sentence, do not reference. Do not reference. It needs to be short, one sentence only. Do not write your topic sentence in 2 sentences, just one sentence. That sentence is almost like the heart of the introduction, the thesis. This sentence is the sentence that clearly states what the paragraph will be about. And sometimes the sentence could be the same as the one in the outline. Remember, you said this essay will firstly address unemployment as the cause of poverty. So in your first paragraph, I expect that sentence to be the first sentence. So the paragraph will start by saying, to begin, this essay addresses 1, 2, 3, or to begin, unemployment is the major cause of poverty in Africa. Simple. You don't always have to say this essay, right? To begin, unemployment is the first or the major consequence of poverty in Africa. You end there, you put a full stop. Then you can explain. You can explain in 1, 2, 3 sentences. That depends on the size of the essay, so how many words you're supposed to write. You can provide examples. Then you can support. Please support. This is where you provide evidence. Once you've explained, you need to then support that explanation with referencing. This author says that usually you have prescribed readings. You have recommended readings in assignments. When you have an assignment, usually there's readings that your lecturer requires you to read to support that assignment. So yeah, you can then use some of those readings to support, to say, Zulu 2023 says that unemployment indeed has, caused on poverty in Africa by 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you use the reference to support your explanation. And please take note of this. Your reference needs to be directly linked to the course that you're discussing. Sometimes students put references that do not match what they're saying. So it's not just about putting any reference because you have to provide a reference. It's about using a reference that is relevant to the argument of that specific paragraph. Then conclude by linking the two, showing how that paragraph answers the question, right? So after explaining unemployment, then you provide an example, and then you conclude by stating how, or reiterating that this shows with a sentence like, this clearly shows that unemployment has caused poverty in Africa. Now let's look at the topic sentence, because again, as I said, it is the core of the body paragraph. It is important that your topic sentence clearly links to the argument or question. So for example, if I have to discuss the causes of war, my topic sentence will be, one of the reasons why people go to war is the lack of effective communication. So not the repetition of the question in the topic sentence. There is a link There's a direct link between the question and the topic sentence, and this improves your structure, right? And also using linking devices like to begin, one of the causes, you know, furthermore, moreover, firstly, secondly, such words will definitely, you know, help you. These words will also help you to improve on your structure. So it's very important that you use these words so that your work can flow logically, right? So using those words will definitely gain you or allow you to have more marks. All right, I hope that was enough time for a comfort break, or maybe to get to make your cup of coffee quickly before we do the activity. All right, guys, what is important when you're looking at the paragraph is what we call coherence and cohesion. There's always marks for coherence and cohesion. If you look at your assignment description and you look at how your assignments or your essays have marked, there's always marks assigned for the flow of your essay. So cohesion and coherence, it's how does your essay flow from one paragraph to the next? What strategies have the student used for the ideas to flow coherently from one paragraph to the next, right? So what are the things that we look at? The sentences need to flow from one to the next. There needs to be a link between your references and your arguments. Everything you discuss in the paragraph needs to be directly linked to your thesis. All your supporting sentences need to be linked to your thesis. So one way of also ensuring coherence is to avoid overly long paragraphs. When the paragraph is too long, possibilities are you're discussing, you're digressing, you're putting in information that is not necessary and will lead to less coherence and marks deduction, right? The next thing is linking words. Your paragraphs will flow more if you use linking words like firstly, secondly, furthermore, and so on. Or if it's a long paragraph where you need to number them, then numbers can also work, right? Now, linking paragraphs to each other. This is important through your introductory sentences, your concluding sentences. Now, the concluding sentence serves two purposes. The first one is to conclude the paragraph. The next one is to introduce the next. Now, let's say my first paragraph was addressing unemployment as one cause of poverty in Africa. So the last sentence will say this shows that unemployment is the main cause of poverty in Africa. However, corruption is equally an important factor to consider. Now I have concluded employment and I have introduced the next one, which is corruption. This means the next sentence will be, secondly, corruption is another cause of poverty in Africa. So you will see that there is a link between the last sentence in the previous paragraph and the first sentence in the paragraph that follows. So this is what we call cohesion, and you gain marks when you do that. Okay. So I have explained that point already. Linking topic sentences. Oh, what is also important in your paragraphs is that try as much as possible to make sure that you also use your own words. So avoid starting your paragraphs with references and ending your paragraphs with references. Start in your own words, end in your own words. There needs to be a link between the topic sentence, the concluding sentences, and please make use of your linking devices. And this will ensure that your paragraphs flow in a logical manner, will improve your coherence, and which will lead to more marks. Okay. Within your paragraphs, what is also important is, and I'm not going to go into detail with this because as I said, there will be a workshop on language and grammar. But when we are marking your academic essays, there's also marks that go for the grammar and language. And I have started in what we call your higher order concerns. So more marks will usually be assigned to, has the student understood the question? Are they answering the question? If the question says causes of poverty, are they actually addressing the causes of poverty or the consequences? What are they talking about? Did they understand the question? Then coherence is the next thing, which is the structure that will get you marks. How did you order your work? How in your introduction, do you have the introductory sentence? Do you have the thesis? Do you have an outline? In the body paragraphs, do you have topic sentences, supporting sentences, concluding sentences? That is what we call cohesion. Do you have that? Then the next thing that will earn you marks is your language and grammar. Now, when it comes to the language, avoid contractions, didn't. Avoid words like varsity, those are informal words, right? Slangs, avoid slangs. Use a formal tone, the third person preferably. Avoid the passive voice. These are things that will make your language informal and you may lose marks. Then with the grammar, we look at things like, do you have full constructed sentences? Do you have, are your tenses, do your tenses agree? Do your tenses, are they consistent? If you're reporting in the present tense, are you consistent? Or do you switch between present, future, and so on? We look at your punctuation, comma, semicolon, full stops. So these are the kind of things that we look at when we're looking at your grammar. So you will see that also with the language, you should avoid the first person. The third person is preferable in your essays, right? Also be inclusive with your language. Try to use words that are inclusive in terms of gender, right? For example, you know, instead of saying he or she, you can say they. So try to, you know, use neutral gender words. But again, we will go into detail with this when we look at the language and grammar workshop, right? For example, words like, instead of saying spaceman, you can say astronaut. Instead of saying mankind, you can say humanity. Instead of saying man-made, you can say artificial. Instead of saying salesman, you can say seller, sales representative. These are gender neutral words, right? Instead of saying usherette, you can say usher, poetess, poet. So you use gender neutral words. And you also, for example, if you say, you can say husband and wife, not husband and woman. You can say man and woman, right? So you need to be careful in the way you use your language, right? And these are the different things we look at with grammar. Please always check your punctuation. Check your sentence structures, check your articles. Capitalization is one important thing students use incorrectly, right? And if you have an assignment and you book to see me and you say, Queen, I have this assignment, please look at my grammar. I will look at your grammar and I will identify some of these mistakes so that you can fix it. We do not edit students' work, so I'll not fix it for you, but I'll identify them and tell you how to fix it, okay? So usually identify like 3 of the same mistake and tell you, okay, focus on this and fix it in this way, right? And that usually helps a lot. For longer assignments, sometimes you will need headings. But usually if you need headings, the assignment brief will tell you if headings are needed. But for essays that are usually less than 3,000 words, it's advisable to stop or not to use headings. Okay, any questions regarding the body? Any questions? All right, what I want you to do now, remember you have an introduction already, and thank you so much for all those who shared. Now, what I want you to do is to use one of those. You're just writing one paragraph. Remember you identified some of those causes. For example, let me go back to the chat. Someone identified unemployment. Others identified corruption, and so on. So what I want you to do is to pick one of those and construct a paragraph for me. And again, you will share that and I'll give you feedback just as I did with the introduction. We're not going to look at coherence, because for me to look at coherence, I need to look at least 2 paragraphs, right? But because of time, we're not able to look at 2 paragraphs. So with your coherence, I can always give you feedback when you book on a one-on-one, then I can provide you feedback. If you have written anything before, or you have a past assignment, you just want to know if you're in the right track, whatever the case may be, if you want to work on that, you can book with me. But for today, because of time, we're just going to do 1 paragraph. So just going back to the slide. So I expect again at least 4 sentences for your paragraph: a topic sentence, explanation, example, and referencing. And the referencing can be fictional. You can just put a reference even if it's not a real reference. It's okay. Just so I know you have to include a reference. With the introduction, is optional. With the body paragraph, academic writing, there has to be most often a reference, except the lecturer specifically says no referencing is needed for this assignment. Then the conclusive sentence. Okay. So let's just say it's 16:30. I'll give you till 40. Let's just have 10 minutes. Okay, because I still need time to go through. Oh, there's a body paragraph already. Excellent. Excellent, Nolene. All right. While I read Nolene's body paragraph and provide feedback, the others can be writing their paragraphs as well. So it's 16:30. Just so that I give you time to write without disrupting. Nolene, thank you. I will look at your paragraph, but let me just give 10 minutes for others to write, and then I will look at your paragraph. So let's just say it's 16:30. At 16:40, I'll start with providing feedback on Nolene's work and other paragraphs that would have been posted. Okay. All right. I'm going to start providing feedback on the paragraph that Nolene has shared while I wait for you to share your paragraphs. Okay, so unemployment also lives as poverty. Excellent, Nolene. Many people, your topic sentence is short, it's clear, it's concise. It tells the reader exactly what the paragraph will be about, which is unemployment that leads to poverty. Excellent. It's clearly linked. Can afford their needs, not to mention their wants. High rate of unemployment leads to crime and theft in a specific area, no place. Therefore, it is highly important for the government to try to create jobs opportunities and motivate people to educate themselves in order to curb high rate of unemployment resulting to poverty. Poverty is not a big issue if we work together. In unity, we conquer all. Excellent. Now, what is beautiful about your explanation is that you provide, the recommendations. You state what unemployment is. You state the consequences of unemployment, but you link it very importantly to poverty. Now, what might improve your conclusion is number 1, references. Hypothetically, you could just add what other author is talking about employment, article or book that is talking about or providing examples of how unemployment has actually led to poverty. So if you add that, that will bring in, the evidence part, point number 3, evidence part of your body. Then please mute your mic. Then you need a conclusive sentence as well. So to maybe introduce the next point. So maybe to say, Nolene for sharing that. Do we have any other paragraphs? All right, there's a paragraph. Okay, I'm going to provide feedback now. All right, Leseko. Thank you, Leseko. Okay. Financial or economic consequences of poverty in Africa include dominant factors like inflation, which leads to increases in the prices of food staples. All right. That's a good introduction, Leseko. However, what I'm not seeing in your topic sentence is poverty. the link between poverty. Oh, wait. There is poverty. Financial economic causes of poverty in Africa include dominant factors like inflation. Oh, excellent. Now, this means you will speak specifically of inflation. Now, what I could advise Leseko is chop out which leads to increases of food prices and staple. Chop that out. Just because you don't want to explain in your topic sentence. The topic sentence is more like that sentence that just says, I'm sick. But then the next sentence will explain what kind of illness, why you're sick, consequences of the illness, and so on. So you don't want to explain in your topic sentence. So just ending on inflation, that will say, okay, you are talking about inflation, then you can explain in the next sentence. According to the World Bank, excellent, Leseko. I'm seeing reference in there, okay? According to the World Bank, rising food prices are likely to lead to high poverty in sub-Saharan Africa as the negative impact on net poor customer outweighs the benefits to poor producers. Price increases due to inflation trap the African populace in perpetual poverty. Definitely. As food prices increase, more people, excellent. Well, this is a beautiful explanation. You've referenced it. That means, you know, your work is supported by an organization and a well-known organization, and you use an academic reference. What I like about your reference is not just any kind of reference, but organizations like the World Bank, the WHO, these are acceptable sources in academic writing. So you've used an acceptable reference to support your argument. Excellent, beautiful. Now, the only thing missing is that conclusive sentence that summarizes the paragraph and introduces the next. Well done. Well done, Leseko. Well done, Noli. Conclusion. Okay. If there's any more paragraphs, I will provide feedback. In the meantime, let's move to the last part of the ACEs. So we have our introduction, we have our body paragraph. The next thing that should follow in your essay is the conclusion. So the conclusion is the shortest part of your essay. And the conclusion is usually about 5%, you know, usually in a paragraph, make it one paragraph. Now, please note this. The first thing about your conclusion is do not introduce any new idea. Now, what does this mean? Let's say you're discussing 3 causes, right? You're discussing inflation, you're discussing unemployment, you're discussing corruption. These are your 3 causes. Then in the conclusion, you come and you add maybe what is another cause? Lack of shelter, for example, or infrastructure. Now, you're discussing that in the conclusion, but that wasn't mentioned in the body. You will lose marks, right? Some marks will be chopped off there. So it's important that you do not introduce any new points in your paragraph. What could be new is recommendation. You can discuss the causes, and in your paragraph, you provide a concluding remark or recommendations, you know, to say to curb this poverty, 1, 2, 3 could be done. This is not you adding. You're not adding a new cause. You're just providing a way forward. So in your conclusion, you can provide a way forward. You can provide recommendations, but you should not introduce new information, okay? So when starting your introduction, the first thing you want to do is to restate the purpose of your work. Remember, in the introduction, right, you have to state what the main purpose of your work will be, the thesis. In the conclusion, you have to repeat that, usually in the past tense. The introduction, you say what you will do. In the conclusion, you state what you have done. So this means the conclusion, the introduction could be in the present or future. This essay addresses or will address, but the conclusion should be in the past tense, which is this essay has addressed or has looked at. You repeat your thesis, what the aim was. After doing that, you go to the next part of the introduction, which is the outline. Remember, in your introduction, you outline. This essay will firstly look at, secondly, thirdly. In the conclusion, you do the same. Now, I'm saying this with a smile on my face because generally, The AC, there's a lot of repetition, and that repetition is what gets you marked on the coherence. That is coherence. That is cohesion. Constant repetition. Now, when you're writing an essay, you need to consider that your reader is a baby. A baby where you have to, like, help them with the steps. They follow your steps. You need to walk them through your argument. And walking them through that argument sometimes requires a lot of repetition. So if you have that in mind, it will make your writing even easier. So after restating the aim, now you're summarizing the main points. What was the first paragraph about? What was the second paragraph about? What was the third paragraph about? So you see that the conclusion has 3 different parts, right? Restating the purpose, summarizing the main findings, and providing concluding remarks or recommendation. Another thing that will improve on your cohesion is to introduce your conclusion with things like in conclusion, to conclude, in summary, in sum. These words usually indicate to the reader that now we have come to the end of the AC. So a strong conclusion will then provide a sense of closure to the essay while again placing your concepts in a wider context. Any questions regarding the conclusion? Anyone so far has written the conclusion? We can have some feedback. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask as we are coming to the end of today's session. Any questions? While I'm waiting on questions, we still have a few minutes, so I'll give you a few minutes. I'll give you right up until 16:55. If there's any conclusion in the chat, then I'll provide feedback. If there's any questions, I will answer. Yes, Lefa?
Ma'am, where might I be able to get a copy of the slides, ma'am?
Usually, if you need a copy of the slide, we usually give a copy to all, we can provide a copy to all students that attend. Send me an email. Alternatively, I will give the slide to Kagiso as well, and he can, but I like to share my slides because slides are to be used only by students who attend. So just a disclosure, if I give you the slide, please do not share the slides with any other students, but I can definitely share my slides with all students who attended. Okay, so I do have a list of attendance. Leifa, I've shared my email in the chat, so you can just send me an email and I'll attach the presentation to you. Is that okay?
That will do, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, please, I may not do it now because after the workshop, I have other commitments, but tomorrow, if morning, I will definitely, tomorrow is a public holiday, so I might send it to you on Thursday. But usually I send you the next day after the workshop at most. But just send me the email or try my possible best to send it to you. I see someone has posted, Karabo. Okay, the oldest and most significant contributor of poverty in Africa is colonialism. Excellent, Karabo. What I like about your paragraph is that the topic sentence is clear, it's short, it's linked to the question. Causes of poverty. The cause is colonialism. Excellent. Many years ago, before our time, European countries decided to come to Africa and create colonies in different regions. This led to borders being created. For example, the nation of Portugal colonized by Mozambique, and France did so with the Congo. The Europeans then proceeded to oppress the indigenous people of a particular region. This oppression came in the form of genocide, forcing indigenous people to adopt European customs and norms. Africans also receive inferior quality in many aspects of life. Now, what I like about the way this is going is you giving us, how colonialism came about, but not generally. You're linking it to poverty. You talking, this sentence speaks about inferior quality, and your definition was about not receiving the standards. There is that link between your context, your definition, and your paragraph. Beautifully done. They were not allowed to participate in the economy which led to poverty in households. Excellent. You're explaining that the Europeans also minded and exported, again linked to poverty. Let's look at the last sentence. Not only did colonialism destabilize many African states, but inequality soon followed as the Europeans left. This was evident in South Africa, where the apartheid regime followed and caused poverty further. Excellent, Karabo. You have clearly now summarized the current paragraph and introduced the next. Excellent. You will have all the marks for this paragraph, right? Just the one thing, you didn't include a reference, right? Just remember to add in at least one reference per paragraph. That is the only thing to be improved in this paragraph, Karabo. Well done. Okay, Letha. The first address looks at poverty traps as a cause of poverty in Africa. Poverty traps are found in African funerals and African weddings. A poverty trap are self-reinforcing circles of poverty that are difficult to escape. African funerals are financially extensively processes that require daily funding from the time of the death to the funeral burial. According to the financial institutional statistics, funeral cover policy are dominantly taken up by African families. This takes away little money that can be given to the grief family and may have and cause financial struggle. Leifa, what is poverty traps? I don't understand the term poverty traps. What does it mean, poverty traps? Is it a specific term?
A poverty trap is something that is found in within a cultural group or setting that perpetuates poverty. So with African cultures, the way we do our weddings, the way we do our funerals, they take up a lot of money, which takes away resources that could go into areas that would enrich us because
Okay,
we're spending so much money in these other areas.
All right, thank you for clarifying that. Leifa, what you could do is focus on these traps. So instead of saying poverty trap, which is really generic, right? You focus on one of them, which you say it's maybe, I think here is funeral covers. So you can say funeral covers is one of the first cause of poverty in Africa. So instead of saying poverty trap, because the topic sentence or the paragraph, guys, please note this, take this in your notes. A paragraph must or should address only one single idea. You cannot address two ideas at a time. A paragraph should address one idea, right? Now, so in this case, when you say poverty traps, there's many of them, right? So your topic sentence can focus on one of them, and taking into consideration what you discuss in your essay, it's about funeral cover policy, and that is what your reference is. Your reference is talking about cover policies. So your topic sentence should also specifically speak about cover policy, and then this could be linked to funerals, right? Maybe not weddings, because wedding could be another, except there's a cover for wedding. But now you see that you're discussing weddings and funeral, which goes because we're talking of traps in general. But maybe be specific to one trap and then address that. Does that make sense, Leifa?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
All right. I think you are in the right trap, definitely. I wouldn't have not giving you all the marks, but you could have lost some marks. But just focusing on one, the structure, the way you structure it was brilliant. Thank you, Leifa. Nolin says, in addition, necessity is the simplicity. I encourage all of us to work together as a whole to fight unemployment rate. Conclusion. Thank you, Nolin. You have clearly provided recommendation and a way forward. So Nolin, what is missing in your conclusion is you haven't restated the purpose. What was the purpose of this essay? And you haven't summarized all the causes that you discussed. If you can restate the purpose, summarize all the causes discussed, then the concluding remark, this sentence will be the last sentence of your conclusion. Excellent. How many references should one include per paragraph? It depends on how many references. Some assignments will say 15 references. This means you could include up to 3 references per paragraph. If the assignment says 2 references, that means you can repeat the references, but you need at least 1 reference per paragraph. So at least 1, preferably 3, right? So this really depends on the scope of the essay. At least 1, preferably 3. Does that answer you, Karabo? So please remember, you have attended the workshop, but you also can consult with me. If you go further in the chat, you'll see Kagiso did provide his email address. So if you want to book for a session with me, send him an email. Then he will advise when I'm available. And then we'll book for a session where it's just going to be you and me, where we can then address your specific assignment. It could be from trying to understand the assignment, brainstorming how to go about it. It could be Queen, check my grammar, check my references, check the flow of my AC. How am I doing? I will provide comments on how to improve, and then you will then work on your draft. You can even meet with me a second time to say, okay, I've worked on my draft. How am I doing? And this really in the past has helped students improve on their assignments, okay? So please use the services that UNISA provides to you. I have also given you my email. If you want the presentation, send it to me. If I don't do it tonight, tomorrow is a holiday and it's Women's Day. So happy Women's Day to all the women in the room. All right. Hope you have enough rest and hope you celebrate yourself, and I hope you also celebrate it. All right. So in this note, on this note, Kagiso has also provided his email for any questions, but also the recording. If you need the recording, please also email Kagiso. Thank you so much, Karabo. I'm glad that it was informative. I really appreciate your comments. Thank you. Thank you so much to everyone for taking the time to attend, for taking the time to participate. I really do appreciate that. When is our next session? Just looking through my calendar just to tell you of the next session before we end the session. So we will be seeing again on Thursday, and on Thursday we will be looking at of AC. So today we've done the basic structure of the AC. On Thursday we'll look at how to write different types of AC. So when it's an argumentative AC, what do I do? If it's a narrative AC, what do I do? All right, so I hope we're able to look at the AC further. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a lovely evening. Bye.